potentially construct that footpath. And I'm not really sure about the condition of the road verge in that area and whether it impacts on biodiversity and all the rest of it. So it's not as simple as just saying provide it, because it could affect any sort of biodiversity type issues as well. So it's an unknown. If you make them provide it, it hasn't been assessed within the development application. The land is there, and I'm not convinced there is a complete nexus between this development and providing that footpath along Isabel Drive.
Certainly not 100% of the developer being the sole responsibility for delivering that, but it is in the master plan, so I'm just like,
Just letting you know about broadcasting.
We'll talk in the meeting.
Okay. I'll declare the meeting open and remind councillors that the meeting is being webcast. You should refrain from any defamatory, making any defamatory statements. I'll ask you to join me in acknowledging the country. Yass Valley Council recognises the Ngunnawal people, the traditional custodians of the land, water and sky. We pay our respect to their elders, past, present and future. We extend our respect to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people living in the Yass Valley local government area. Let us be still and remember the presence of God. As we commence our meeting, let us together pray for guidance and help. Almighty God, we ask your blessing upon this council, direct and prosper our deliberations to the true welfare of Australia and the people of Yass Valley. Amen. Okay, apologies, everyone's present. Any declarations of pecuniary interest or disclosures? Councillor
Bengo Wind Farm. I'm going to receive money out of Bengo Wind Farm.
Councillor Burgess.
Right, the land right next door.
So that's item 9.2.
Thank you, Councillor Burgess.
It's 6.3.
Item 6.3 for me, I have a possible pecuniary interest in preschool, so I'm just going to go on the side of caution and just remove myself.
Thank you, Councillor Potter.
Just a non-pecuniary interest in item 6.9, just being a general committee member of one of the clubs in the EOI application for the storage. I will remove myself from the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Tennant.
Yes, I suppose I should declare an interest in item 6.10. I'm a Rotarian, but it's non-pecuniary and non-significant, and I'll stay for the debate.
Thank you.
The paperwork.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just wanted to state that while I do have a child at Yass High School, I'm not on any P&Cs or any executive function there, so I will not declare any interest in 6.8. And I want to remind councillors that you have delegated me to be a director on the Ginninderry Conservation Trust, which is partly funded through the ACT government and also the developer of the Parkwood area, but you put me there. So that's a function that I have to be in for.
On behalf of council. Thank you, Councillor Jones. Item 4, the confirmation of minutes. Minutes have been circulated. Someone like to move? Thank you, Councillor Reid. Councillor Polton. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Mural minute nil. Reports to council. 6.1 Parkwood Development Control Plan. Councillor Jones.
I would like to propose on an alternative that 1, a development control plan for the area covered by Yass Valley Local Environmental Plan, Parkwood 2020, be prepared. And 2, a report be presented at the February 2024 meeting detailing the due diligence process undertaken to consider the offer by the developer to fund Resourcing Council to undertake the preparation of the development control plan, provide the draft deed if prepared in confidential, and that the report should also identify alternate funding options resourcing impact on Council's 2024-2025 budget.
We have a second?
No, the question,
You would not need to get.
Yeah.
that from the-
Yeah, the information up on the screen is different to what the councillor has just read out, sorry.
Yeah, we need to get that sorted.
Okay.
So councillor Reid, second.
It's on there.
Do you want me to type it?
Which,
It's up to you, yes.
it didn't come through the email. But it's not me.
Shorten this DCP. Just gotta get rid of that. That and all those numbers that shouldn't be there. And can you check that? Can you check that?
Yeah.
Thanks. Thanks for your patience.
Just a couple of things, councillor. The impacts might not be on the 24-25 budget, they might be on the current budget. So just put council's budget.
Excellent. Good Sarah could delete the timing.
And the second by councillor Reid. Councillor Jones.
Through Mr. Mayor, the first thing that I want to state is that our staff has acted with exemplary action. This is not a criticism in any way. It is a method to show the public and be convinced ourselves that the due diligence is occurring. And just with the emails that we've received over this past week, I think there's a lot of information there that in summary format could be provided in council open session or council confidential, will show that, you know, we are acting in a proper and right way as well as staff. I think that we need to put on record that there is an offer from the developer and we are aware of it while we are making a decision to prioritise the DCP, because it's important that we
Thank you, councillor Jones. Any speakers against the motion? Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move an amendment actually, rather than speak against it. The amendment would be that where the word in number 1, where it says that it be prepared, that it be changed to be deferred, and it runs on to until a report be presented to the February Council. So I'm asking for an amendment that it be deferred until February, please.
You happy?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask a question of our executive as to what impact that might have on the progression, because I'm getting the impression that this prioritisation is required, and if it's going to impact this budget, for some reason there is urgency. So if you could speak to that issue.
Through Mr. Mayor, part of me thinks that changing it from prepared to deferred changes the intent of the motion that has been put forward at the present time that's been moved and seconded. So I'm not sure that's an amendment as such, because it's almost a direct opposite to what has been moved and seconded.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, then, before I accept or decline the amendment or declare it a foreshadowed motion, or argue that it's a foreshadowed motion, can you speak to the urgency in which we've been asked to prioritise the DCP?
Part of the issue with the urgency is that the development timeframe has now been brought forward from 2032 to 2028. So we need to get on with all of the work that is listed in the LEP as being mandatory requirement to meet that timeframe. And so that's the reason for moving on this at this particular point in time. The challenge for the planning staff is going to be how are we going to deliver it, and what resources are needed for that. Now, whether that's delivered by staff, by a consultant that we engage, or whether it's by using a contribution from a developer, they're all options that need to be considered, and that would certainly come under the second part of that motion that you've put up there.
And just for my understanding as well, while it may impact this current budget, is the preparation of a DCP likely to span multiple budgets and impact our long-term financial plan, or is this a short burst of activity required?
Look, at 12 to 18 months, it's not going to impact significantly your long-term financial plan. There's certainly a time frame, but as we know, certainly with consultants, that we can get delays from time to time. But the reality in this is that DCPs for a major growth area like this are not unusual. There are examples of them around. Most of the standards are going to be ACT standards. They've got well-developed policies and plans and requirements for this. So, a large part of it is going to be cut and paste. We've just got to adapt it for some of the particular circumstances for Parkwood.
True, Mr. Mayor. I do believe that the CEO has given us correct information that unfortunately that amendment would change the intent of the motion. Our intent is to get on with the job and prepare it. I think deferring it does not send that direct message right now. Sorry, Councillor Cameron, but thank you for your input.
Councillor
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody. We're actually dealing with two separate issues here in one motion, I think. The first one is we need that plan and we need to get on with it right now. And we should say, yes, that's it. The second part is whether or not we accept an offer from the developer to help fund that. And it is possible, I think, that we can say, yes, let's start on this plan, but look at the poverty issues as we go and make sure that we are not stepping outside of our comfort zone, as it were. So I would say, no, I don't think we should be amending this motion. I think we should be taking it as is. Or if we find that there is some contention there, maybe splitting the motion into two. Thank you.
All right. Any further speakers? Councillor Wright.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, to the CEO, just respect to your email, you used the acronym TBM. Does that mean to be determined or to be decided?
It's,
Dollar sign to.
yes.
Yeah.
So the terms of like the amount
Yeah.
hasn't been determined, that's still
Right.
being discussed.
That was just my guess. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
I assume that my amendment has been refused and the amendment is not going ahead. And I won't put it up as a foreshadowed motion as such, but I'd like to just speak against the motion. I think looking at the motion, I think part two is very reasonable and quite acceptable because it allows councillors to have a good look at the material that has come before us eventually to make a decision about that particular issue. What I find really quite surprising is why the rush and why the haste. I must point out that in a email sent to us this morning, and only this morning, it was the point was made that this information about the whole probity issue, which I think in some ways is separate but is very strongly interlinked with the whole DCP for Parkwood, I think it's really very interconnected. But we were told in this email this morning that this has been sitting on the CEO's desk since May 2023. Now, if I can count properly, that really means 7 months that this issue about an urgent matter, about a DCP, about how it might be funded, has been just sitting there for 7 months. So if the issue is so urgent, why has it been sitting there? Why hasn't it been brought to the attention of councillors to have a bloody good look at this and have a view on it before we rush into it? So I think the argument about haste and the necessary rush towards this judgment, I find quite amazing. I find it quite disappointing that it has sat there for 7 months. I find it quite disappointing that we are now being presented at the last council meeting to come up with this and say, let's go ahead with this. Okay, I know the last DCP hasn't been brought to us in regard to the Yass Valley program overall, and it's taken 5 years, so there wasn't quite a rush there. We seem to be in a rush for this particular DCP, and while it's been waiting there for 7 months, it could have been brought to our attention and we could have been working on it 6 months ago quite easily. So I do reject this motion. I like part two. I think it's very appropriate, and I think we have to be seen to be very transparent to the community. Otherwise, we're going to get a backlash on that. But why race into it? We're probably talking, what, 8 weeks at the most to the next council meeting? Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Cameron.
I'll respond. Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor. Councillor Cameron, it actually hasn't been sitting on the desk of the CEO, it's actually been on my desk. We got the probity advice and then I responded to the joint venture in October, but it hasn't been on the CEO's desk, so that criticism's for me, not for the CEO. In terms of the development control plan and the urgency, like we bring it to this meeting, we bring it to another meeting, it still has to come to a meeting to get the resolution of council. And the reason is, at the start of the year, the developer was still planning to come over the border in about 2032. He advised us partway through this year that the intention had changed and that he was bringing forward the time in which he would come across into the New South Wales part. So whilst 2028 might be the start of maybe a dwelling or the subdivision's finished, the DA will actually come to council in 2026. I refer you to part 6 of the Parkwood LEP, which refers to all the matters that council has to address in order to be able to determine the development application. These matters are not insignificant, not at all. So if I give you an idea, we have to ensure that the arrangements are in place for designated state public infrastructure. We have to ensure that arrangements are in place for local infrastructure, and we have to have a development control plan prepared. The matters relating to the development, to getting the satisfactory arrangements for the infrastructure alone will take us a couple of years, and it does feed back into the development control plan. Getting Department of Education, Transport for New South Wales, hospitals, health, ambulance, fire brigade, police, that's not a simple task at all. The CEO alone has been having negotiations over a number of years, and we still haven't progressed that far. And now we've got about 2 years to get it sorted out. This timing is not of council's making. This is what the developer has decided, and the developer is entitled to lodge a development application. That's my advice back to you.
Just in response, thank you for saying whose desk it was on. I think over the last 6 months, there have been occasions where it has been mentioned, and I think you've mentioned it, that Parkwood seems to be going quicker than expected. But that raises the question, why haven't we been brought up to date with it, with what's going on? Like in terms, like, and I take the point that it's not an insignificant process to be done, but that's the way it is.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, the developer's coming to address council at the February council briefing. And until this point in time, whilst yes, I may have mentioned it, we weren't at a point of raising any of these issues with council. And I'm raising it here. It's not a deliberate attempt to raise it at the last minute before Christmas. It's just we're ready now to roll with it. So this is the meeting that it comes to. The developer is coming to address council in February, and you can ask him all these questions if you would like. But council could have also asked me for a briefing, but it's organised for February.
Okay. Any further discussion? Motion then, all those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron. Let the motion carry. 6.2, open space strategy. Is your recommendation?
So moved.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Popham, thank you. Any discussion? Any question? Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, just like to make a couple of quick comments. With 200 pages of detail, and I know this is going to go out on public exhibition at some stage, it's a bit of a frightening document to basically come to terms with. But I'm going to sort of urge particular communities and villages, etc., to have a look at how it relates to them, because I think it's important that they get a view of what's being suggested in this particular plan. I did have another comment I had was that some people didn't think it was a strategy per se, that it was much more a review of what was there and what could be done, etc., rather than a strategy. And it raises the question in my mind, which doesn't need to be answered necessarily here, but maybe at a later date, about how are things going to be implemented and how that's going to be monitored. For example, in Yass, there's 2 examples there. One that I think of, one is Hatton's Corner, which talks about removing weeds and doing some work there. Also with Miles Franklin Park, looking at the drainage. So there's 2 things that, I think are quite worthwhile to mention, but how is it going to be sort of monitored? How is it going to be reviewed? How is it going to be implemented? I don't think that's really, to my mind, sketched out in any sort of detail. Maybe I'm wrong there. I think we also sort of need to have a bit more of an idea from the plan, from the review, from the strategy plan as such, that how do we see open space? How do we see, as we are starting to have more and more developments around the edges of Yass, Murrum Bateman, Sutton and Gundaroo, how are we pursuing open space in a very sort of forward-looking way, rather than sort of just saying, okay, here are things that we should be looking at, but what's our general sort of thrust? What are we really trying to do? So I'll just make those comments, and I'm sure we'll be getting some feedback from the community on those.
Thank you, Councillor Potts.
Through you, Mr Mayor, I'd just like to say thank you to all the staff and the people involved in putting this together, because it is a massive document, and all the people who've contributed and the community groups and stuff already. And just like, I take my hat off to the work that's gone into this document, and I'm really excited about what this represents for the community across the whole of Yass Valley for the coming years.
Thank you, Councillor Hoffman. Any other comments? Councillor Turner.
I'd like to repeat Councillor Hoffman's words, but when she said it much more eloquently than me. But this is a really important step in the process. We as a committee have already looked at it internally. A bunch of people have looked at it, communities have looked at it, public groups have looked at it. This is an opportunity for the community at large. It's 42 days for them to really study it. It's a big document, but they've got 42 days to study it, and their input is going to be critical as to whether this works or it doesn't.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.3, modification development consent. Through school, 37 Church Street. Councillor Councillor Jones, Councillor Butler. Any discussion?
Through you, Mr Mayor, we did insist that a larger section was required in the past, but it's clear to see that because of the reduction in the footprint of the building in terms of how many classes they're having inside, they're not required to, and this is a compliant development. I will ask the Director of Infrastructure, thank you, Mr. Cook, whether or not this section is part of our ongoing push for grants to secure our pedestrian and mobility plan priorities.
Through you, Mr Mayor, so it isn't currently identified in the current PAMs, but in future renditions of that, the community are able to put these forward and have them included in the future PAM.
Councillor Cameron, would you?
We have a mover?
Yes. Councillor Jones and Councillor Butler.
We're on fire over here.
Oh, sorry, okay. So, yeah. Sorry, we have to wake up sometime.
We'll do that.
Look, yeah, this is an interesting proposal to reduce the amount of the footpath. Look, I'm arguing against it because let's have a bit of a think about it. That from my point of view, the organisation that bought this particular plot knew that there was what they were buying into. There was no footpaths there. The grass is quite long, and I think they would have realised that an essential element for any school for young people and families would be to have adequate footpaths. I think council made the right decision in the first place, that the developer has an obligation to provide a safe footpath for people going to that facility that they've chosen to put there and not anywhere else. I still think the point that you're making, Councillor Jones, is that there's a reduction in the numbers. Okay, fine, but 60 students is still a large number of people, and you're not only just talking about the kids, you're talking about the carers, the mums and dads who are taking the kids to school, and whether they've got pushers or dogs or whatever going with them as well. You're not just talking about one kid walking along, you're talking about a small group. And I would think that that we should actually keep asking for the footpath to be fully developed from one road to the other, rather than just from the site to one of the roads. I think we should be looking for the future, and I don't think we should be going back to having a situation where people are going to be walking through the grass. And as the Director of Infrastructure had mentioned, we do have an active transport plan, and we do wanting to encourage people to walk more, to ride more. We're going to have more kids on those e-bike type things. It's going to be more and more the need for good footpaths. And at the moment, we've got a grant to have a look at a number of different footpaths throughout the Yass Valley. But that's really only a grant, and it's a good grant, but it's only a grant for the design, getting the design done. It's not a grant to get them implemented. And I would think, one of the comments that's made in the report is it's a future infrastructure opportunity for council. Well, no, I think it's a future infrastructure opportunity for the developer to complete the footpath so that they can have kids and families coming from both directions, from south to north to east and west. And if they want the school there, which they obviously do, then I think they should pay, and not the ratepayers sometime in the future, or via grants that sometimes don't appear. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Any further discussion?
And then you.
Age before beauty.
Okay,
Who moved it?
I was going to ask you a question,
Yes.
Mr. Director. You go. It's
As long
okay.
as you're not closing debate.
No.
So,
Never.
go for it.
All right. Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. It's my understanding that because of the reduction in numbers and because of the provision of the car parking spaces, it's no longer reasonable, nor can we make them build more than we've asked. Is there any enforceable way to actually achieve what Councillor Cameron's asking?
Through you, Mr Mayor. The requirement for the footpath came about in the modification that council considered in December 2021. So it was from when they increased the number of children from 45 to 90, and they reduced the parking on site, which then didn't comply. So then they had to do also the line marking on Church Street. So to compensate that for as well, they were requested or conditioned to construct the footpath between Lead and Main Street, the full construction. Now they're reducing the number of children and down to 60, and they're reducing the building footprint, so the parking on site will comply with the parking requirements. So what we're saying is then, it's reasonable to remove part of the requirement for the construction of the footpath from the building to Main Street. If council would like them to build the footpath, the full length of Lead to Main Street, then that can be conditioned as part of the consent. It's again that question of nexus between the development. That condition went on there because of the 90 children now and the parking not complying. The parking does now comply, and they've reduced the number of children.
Through Mr. Mayor, the other thing too is to remember is that the footpath is not exclusively for the use of the school. It actually includes members of the broader public and community. Arguably, council should have required a footpath when that development went in place. And again, a developer doesn't fix up all the problems that council hasn't put its attention to in the past.
I'll speak for the motion. I think that the reduction, I think that this all, looks good. I think I'm looking at it from a perspective of that this is a preschool. This is not not like a pub or anything. This is a community asset. A preschool allows people to drop their children off, people that live in Yass Valley, to go to work and create a life. So I actually think that the developer should be met halfway by council, and I think that this is a two-way street, literally. That just came out. I think council should be doing half, and then the developer should be doing half. I think that that's a fair and reasonable request. That's just my thoughts on it.
Thank you, Councillor Butler. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My only concern in all of this is that the original proposal was predicated on 90 children. They obviously did their homework and they worked out how many children were going to be required to support the industry, how many children there were going to be who were going to use the facility, and they came up with a domestic figure of 90. We now have a situation where we'll reduce it to 60 so that we can actually sort out the car parking and then we don't have to do the. If it was going to be 90 originally, what's to stop it being 90 in the future? If we have all of the development that we have going on in the Yass Valley at the moment, that 90 is probably going to be too damn small. So what happens when they turn around and find 60 is not enough? We want to put another classroom in and take up the car parking that we've produced in order to get away from this situation. I support my colleague here. Cooperation, half. We do half of it and they do half of it. I'd love to see a bridge over Chinaman's Creek. It would solve all the problems.
Thank you, councillor Turner. I thought there was going to be a bridge over.
It's in the floodplain.
Close the debate.
Am I closing the debate?
No,
Is there anyone?
that's right.
Okay.
I want to reiterate that this is a not-for-profit organisation.
Sure.
Otherwise, I think we might be asking them to sharpen their pencils and lean heavily towards the nexus of this. However, I want to point out that the original design had the original building as part of the component. This design has a reduced design of one less classroom, and the space of how many children you can have in per square metre changed over the time period of them looking at the original and what they are allowed to have now. So that legislation did change, which impacted on all preschools and how many children they can have on the ground. So I'd say rather than them changing their design to fit the car parking space requirement of Yass Valley Council, I think it's a very secondary issue for them. I think their main issue was meeting the state government requirements on how many children you can have in a space that large. So I would certainly if this area isn't highlighted in our plan, could I actually add to this recommendation? I'm just thinking of an amendment on my feed that the Church Street be reviewed for PAMP priorities and grant funding, because this is a no-brainer. We've now got River, we've got the TAFE, and now a preschool, and at the other end of this street we've also got vulnerable housing.
Yeah.
Do you want me to say that one?
Through you, Mr Mayor, any future PAMP development will go out on public exhibition, so it'll be a submission, I guess, at that
And I
time.
can't do this on closing.
Correct.
Sorry, I've been shot myself, but I realise I can't do this on closing.
Well, nice try.
It will go on exhibition.
You've stretched the elastic a little bit too far.
Have a cup of coffee about an hour ago would have been helpful, I think.
Through Mr Mayor, when we prepare a revised PAM,
Yeah.
there will be engagement with the community about ideas, and then there will be a public exhibition period. There will be many opportunities for the community to have their say about the footpath.
All right, I'll sit down.
And of course, you can have your say at any time. So, it's a motion. Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Cameron. Any councillors?
No, she's
Just a-
right?
Mike,
No,
is that my doors?
it might be doing something else.
Okay, Item 6.4. Review of request development application DA T30034, 50 Mirabelle Drive, Murrumbidgee. There's a recommendation. Councillor Reid,
I'll make the
do you have a seconder?
Yeah.
Councillor Turner. Thank you, councillors. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.5. Development application shed on the house at 10 Hislop, Hislop Drive, Murrumbidgee.
Where are we?
Councillor Butler,
Sorry,
Councillor Butler.
Mr. Mayor, did that include the addition of the last paragraph?
Yeah, it should be. Phil, can you just,
Scroll down.
yeah, the applicant be advised to review some proposed developments and new development.
We have a second, councillor Bolton. Thank you. Any discussion?
For the motion, and then we'll just.
Councillor Jones.
Mr. Mayor. It's clear to me that the need for light industrial in Murrumbidgee keeps coming to the fore. We've got a lot of businesses that could employ, a handful of people and potentially grow. And appropriate space is required. This is something that has not gone away in my time on council. Time and time again, we are looking at things that are beyond a hobby on a rural location, and it doesn't fit in our LEP. And it kind of breaks my heart to say no, because they're doing a good thing potentially in terms of employing local people, and we've got a design here that really would be best suited to light industrial. The house itself, with a few adjustments, could be easily approved by the look of it. But there are things here that we need to look to the future of where these small businesses can be provided land, and I think that's part of our need to review in the future review of the LEP. Where next for some light industrial?
Further discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.6. Isabel Drive, Murrumbidgee, residential subdivision. With the recommendation. Councillor Cameron.
Just a question. I think I asked this question the other day about the deferred commencement development consent. What does deferred mean in terms of how long can it be deferred? What
Through
Thank you.
Ask the director.
Yeah. Sorry, meant to
through
mention
you,
that.
Mr. Mayor. So the deferred commencement is essentially, it's council's intention to issue a consent subject to a particular issue being resolved. And in this case, it relates to land contamination. So they have to satisfy the requirement for the land contamination. And once council is happy with what's provided, we enact the consent. So the consent becomes live. I think they usually get about 12 months to deal with it.
All right, thank you.
Yeah, I could be wrong. I'm pretty sure it's 12 months.
Someone like to move the recommendation? Councillor Potham?
Mr. Mayor, I think there's an amendment, isn't there?
There's a second. No.
That was just something I was asked to provide.
Okay.
It needs to be moved.
You need a mover and a seconder. The question is it one and two or just one?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. It was my intention to move both 1 and 2, but having seen the submission, seen the presentation tonight of our two people who spoke to Open Forum, I have a question for the director before I move. It's very clear looking at the plans and also visiting the location that the master plan was correct in that Isabel Drive would be the preferred location for the community in terms of connectivity of the overall Murray-Bateman cycle path plan. It is true what the speaker said, that it would provide a less hazardous path, a more enjoyable path, because you wouldn't be crossing over as many driveways. It would speak more to tourists because it's an identifiable path outside on the perimeter of an estate, not inside. So my question is, how can we as a council provide that and potentially use this development as a partial push towards it, noting that it's not on the developer to provide the full solution to that?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So that particular part of Isabel Drive and the road widening was dedicated to council, I believe, as part of the Maryville Park subdivision, and it's addressed in the report. And it says, whilst the Isabel Drive Road Reserve is significantly constrained by vegetation, this piece of land could facilitate the corridor for future path envisaged by the structure plan. So if it is significantly constrained by vegetation, I don't think council can consider conditioning it as part of this development consent, because it hasn't been considered as part of the assessment of the development application. We don't know what the impacts of biodiversity are. So my recommendation to council is that the developer construct essentially in attachment H that pink section, so that provides the connection through to Isabel Drive. And then council can look towards potentially using contributions to construct that path. I think initially, and I have to defer to the Director of Infrastructure, but I think they would need to do some sort of assessment initially just to see that it's achievable and what, if there are biodiversity impacts and that sort of thing, and what does that mean if you are going to construct that path.
That's very useful. I'm happy to move the motion as stands. So that includes that a condition be imposed requiring the construction of a footpath on the land to be dedicated to council adjoining the proposed lot 34, and that is the pink section on your attachment. So that's not the section of Isabel Drive that the two speakers were speaking about. That they're talking about quite a large section, which is 600 metres.
So we're just going to get this bit here constructed. This is the part that he would like, that was discussed in public forum for discussion. What I'm saying to you is it should be considered later.
I think it's, I'm sorry, I'm going to speak to the motion or not.
I'll second.
Thank you. Learning.
Thank you, councillor.
I think the community is not wrong that that the Isabel section is something that we should have. But this footpath that's included inside this development needs to service that development. That's what it's there to do. In the meantime, it does provide a very practical connector between Isabel Drive and this section that we're not just assigning to but committing to, of the pink section, will also potentially connect with land that council could provide a pathway on in the future. So I don't think we're closing the door on connecting this at all. I think it's important that the community understands that the developer is not responsible for the full delivery of that path. I will ask for some further advice through you, Director, as to the comment that was being made that if we don't have the block shortened tonight, then that's not possible to connect that section. Is that actually accurate?
Well, sorry, so just.
So if we don't minimise the back end of those blocks to create further road reserve, are we eliminating forever the option of connecting that road?
What the report says on page 36, maybe, it says council owns a 5 metre strip of land to the south along the western boundary of Maryville Park, running parallel to the Isabel Drive Road Reserve. Land was dedicated to council as part of the Maryville Park subdivision in the early 90s for the purposes of road widening. Whilst the Isabel Drive Road Reserve is significantly constrained by vegetation, this piece of land could facilitate the corridor for future path envisaged by the structure plan. I think we really will need to do some investigations. There was discussions around placing the path within the actual blocks along that boundary, but I note your comments around the path moving through the subdivision, but it does provide a link. And people in residential areas, kids ride on bikes on footpaths and walk past significantly more driveways than you would actually do in this, and they do it all the time. Yeah.
Question through you, so just to the Director of Planning, just to clarify, there is still scope for a path to run Isabel the full length in the future with no need to alter the block sizes at this moment in time.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. From the report is that there is a 5 metre road widening, so there's land there at the moment. It's constrained by vegetation, but potentially, yes, it could carry a path. And when we're talking the full length of Isabel Drive, what I'm referring to is, if we go to attachment H, is this section, the length of the subdivision. But it won't go on the lots because you would need to get that easement now. It'll be within the road reserve for Isabel Drive.
Councillor Ray.
Yes, through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning and Environment. This development consent has been deferred because, as you said, there's an issue to be addressed. In this case, I think you said it's land contamination. Can you elaborate on, well, firstly, has there been any preliminary investigation, and what is perhaps the nature of land contamination, something to do with dams or whatever?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the report refers to the issue of contaminated land, and a preliminary site investigation has been prepared. It identifies potential areas of environmental concern, including the dams, which require a more detailed investigation. But the preliminary site investigation report considers that the areas of environmental concern are low risk from a contamination perspective and are unlikely to prevent residential development. So in issuing the deferred commencement, we're confident that the issue around the further testing will not present any issues that cannot be overcome to enable this subdivision to proceed. We believe, it's from agricultural, horticultural use, we believe.
Councillor Ray.
Yes, so a question, if I might, through the CEO to planning. I'm just a bit concerned about the wording that says the condition be imposed requiring the construction of a footpath, when we haven't actually, as far as I understand it, looked at exactly the environmental issues, the biodiversity issues of that. Just from a quick glance at what you were doing, I believe that's Scrubby Lane or part of Scrubby Lane, which is a significant little area.
Yeah.
In itself. It does have a small pathway through it, which might be okay, but I'm just concerned about trying to impose a condition on the developer that the developer might not be able to meet. Where that leaves us as a council.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, as part of the development, like it's within the development footprint, this particular work that would be required to do on that pink area of land, and they were proposing to do landscape works anyway within the easement area. So I'm quite comfortable that that could be achieved as part of the development.
Thank you. Thank you. Councillor Ray. Councillor Tan.
Just a question, please, Mr. Mayor, through you to the Director of Planning. I look at this thing and it appears to me that, and I'm assuming that the yellow road through the middle there is a public road. It appears to me that there are 4 roads going south to north in this development. But all 4 of which join up with Isabel Drive. You've got the Macintosh Circuit part, winery. You've got Road 2, you've got Road 1, and now they're wanting the developers to actually put in a 4th road. Is that correct?
No, they're wanting the developer to build the footpath, another footpath along Isabel Drive to connect here. Yeah.
A 4th access.
Well, yeah. So there will be there is an existing footpath that links Macintosh Court Circuit to Isabel Drive. Then the developer will construct another footpath through the subdivision connecting Macintosh Circuit to Isabel Drive, and then the developer will connect a link, will build this other bit of footpath, will take it through to Isabel Drive, but there'll be no footpath there.
And if I'm not wrong, the footpath, the winery trail, crosses at least 3 entrances in Macintosh Circuit.
3, I can't comment on that, whether the Director of Infrastructure wants to.
Sure, Mr. Mayor, yes, it would, but if you notice, the winery trail does cross a number of other roads, and there are mechanisms in place for the cyclists and the pedestrians to stop, give way, and then proceed.
Mr. Mayor, I really think that putting a roadway in the other Isabel Drive with the constraints of trees is an unreasonable ask.
Thank you, councillor Turner. Any further discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Councillor Campbell, thank you. Declare the motion carried. We go on to 6.7. Variation to development standards, quarterly report. There's a recommendation. Councillor Reid, Councillor Abbey, any discussion? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. 6.8, Yass High School basketball court. There's a recommendation. Councillor Jones, Councillor Possum, any discussion? No, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Declare the motion carried. Application to new fire-bay storage at Murrumbidgee, item 6.9.
Oh, through you, Mr. Mayor, I would like to move a deferral of this motion, if I can, please. Do I need a seconder?
Yes, Councillor Reid, discussion purposes, okay.
The reason for this is just so that the clubs have enough time to talk to each other and also to have the opportunity to work together for the best outcome for everyone before they make this decision. Because I know there's already been a bit of conversation because Little Athletics have 2 storage facilities, so they've only been offered 1 bay. And I don't know if, in my mind, that they've had enough time to talk within, and so everybody has sort of a fair go, because I think some of the clubs only need a small amount of storage space and some of them need a lot. So in my mind, if they had a bit more time to work it out and we sort of throw the ball back in their court and before this comes through council, I just think that would be a good thing.
Thank you, Councillor Possum. Any further discussion? Councillor Reid. Councillor Possum.
Question.
Councillor Jones.
While these bays are being allocated and I see a fee is attached, is there anything to stop a club from also providing storage space for another group's items?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, no, I don't think that will be an issue. My understanding is that I think that there's 5 groups there, but potentially they might not need all of the space. I think that the groups can talk amongst themselves, possibly, and just come back to council with a proposal. Council is building will be building a second storage facility, and there is also storage that will be available in the amenities block that will be finished midway through next year. So there is storage coming. The issue for the Little Athletics is, yes, they have a lot of stuff, but one of their containers is sitting where we need to put the sewer pump station. So we need to, but we're happy to work with them to resolve it.
Councillor Reid.
Thank you. Through the Chief Executive Officer to Director of Planning, do we need to defer this in that case? Or do you feel that the clubs would be, working with council can work through it?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I think if council's comfortable with considering the motion of, allocating the storage units and then those 5 groups discussing it amongst themselves and coming back with the proposal, then I think that would be okay. Or otherwise you just defer it and we come back in hopefully in February with a revised
But
proposal.
each of these clubs have actually asked for storage.
Yes, I believe so.
We're just
Yep.
basically saying, go ahead.
Yep.
And there's, at the moment, there is other storage available, because when they take this out, they'll be getting rid of the stuff out of certain containers and what have you.
Yes, and I did distribute just at the start of the meeting, 3 units, a map just showing where the new storage facility is, where the future storage facility is, the amenities block is marked, and then there's a shipping container next to that one, which I believe belongs to Little Athletics. And that's the one that is where the sewer pump needs to go. So look, we're happy to work with them. There's no issue with that. So council can consider the matter as is before them, or they can defer it. We can resolve it with them separately. Yeah.
I'm happy to take it.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, could I suggest that instead of deferring the matter, we take up what Councillor Poppen's trying to achieve here, and we run with the motion as stands that the new 5A storage units be allocated to the following user groups, subject to further negotiations amongst clubs and staff, which gives us, look, you guys have got something, you can figure out how much you need.
Yep.
Happy, yep.
So you need to add there.
So the new 5 new storage units be allocated to the following user groups, and then I guess there's a new 2. Is that what you're saying? That the clubs be encouraged, the clubs be encouraged to negotiate with each other regarding their storage needs.
And we can stop with council.
New 2.
That sounds.
Yep.
We consult with council staff so everyone knows what's going on. To negotiate.
We just need everyone to negotiate in good faith. Councillor Abbey.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the Director of Planning and Environment. Am I to assume the storage bays, 5 new storage bays, are of identical capacity?
Sorry,
Are they of identical capacity?
I understand. Yes, they are. Sorry, Nancy.
There's 2. Should be 2 becomes 3.
Just of the consultation with council, the amount of space required within the storage base. So just a V between council and amount. Sorry.
Just leave it like that.
We'll swap it around tomorrow.
It's the
It makes sense to, it doesn't matter. It's not allowed to do it, anyway. We'll fix it tomorrow. Okay, so that was moved, councillor Reid, councillor Poppen.
Happy to vote?
Yep.
Motion, all those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. Have it worked out.
We might get back to them.
Good luck.
I'll be out there.
Okay. 610, Roadview Lookout, 17 Irvine Drive. There is a recommendation. Councillor Reid, do we have a seconder? Councillor Jones. Any discussion? Councillor Kemp.
Yeah, look, I think this is council land, which where getting a community group to have a look at and perhaps appraise what they can do with it. I'm just basically, I'm quite happy for it to be put on exhibition. We don't have a date exactly when that exhibition is going to occur. Is that immediately or?
No.
Mr Mayor, we usually don't put things on exhibition over the Christmas
Yeah.
New Year period. It'll probably be towards the end of June.
Okay, but I also, I think this is a fairly important sort of project, and I think it's an important sort of thing. I think it should come back to council, so I'm really sort of not happy with the no significant objections. I think this is a quite an interesting project. I think council should be more hands-on rather than just leaving it to the Rotary Club. So I'd like to see the submissions that come in, whatever they are, whether there's objections or not, and basically make an appraisal at that stage about whether we should support it or not.
Does the recommendation need to change?
Oh, well, I think the process here is to give approval in principle for them to proceed. Then there's an approval process to go through, which puts a second round of community consultation out there. And if those submissions are opposed to the approval, then there's an opportunity there for it to be rejected at that point in time. All we're looking at the moment is to get approval in principle. They haven't drafted any plans or prepared anything at this stage. I think they're just looking for some level of certainty to go away and produce some plans.
Okay.
So I think so the idea would be if there's no significant objections received, they'll be permitted in principle to develop. Then they get the plans prepared, they lodge their approval, that goes out to them with the detail to the residents. They get the opportunity to say yea or nay, and then comes back to council for
The second round.
the second round, yeah. Unless nobody objects, of course.
Oh, yeah. Councillor Jones.
I'm looking forward to seeing if there is community comment on this, so I can unleash my full enthusiasm for it. I think there's a lot of untapped potential there in that site, so I was very excited to see this come up in their agenda. The Lake Nelson, what a wonderful painter of the region. There's a connection that I want to share with you. He did a tip of the hat of a wonderful location in Yass towards Wee Jasper of an Elliot Brunner painting. And there's also another Elliot Brunner painting that is encapsulated in a lookout in the Gin and Dairy Conservation Trust purview. And that has been done with a platform, which is what the Rotary are intending to do, a sensational view of a location which was also painted by Yass Brunner, and an actual copy of the picture to the right, embedded in the actual structure. And when I saw this come up, I thought, what a beautiful opportunity for us to do two things: to pay tribute to a wonderful artist who was passionate about Yass and captured many beautiful images of Yass, including from this location, and also invite new people to share that location and experience it in a beautiful setting. So I commend the first steps, and I'm looking forward to seeing what the community say.
Thank you, Councillor Jones. Clear the vote, councillors. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. We go on to 611. Regional Waste Management. With the recommendation. I'd like to move the recommendation. Councillor Abbey, seconded Councillor Root. Any discussion? Councillor Cameron.
A question to the Director of Infrastructure and Assets. Having a read through the memorandum of agreement, it looks pretty straightforward, but I wanted to get a little bit more detail. It mentions there that the landfill average over 3 years can be around about 6,500 tonnes from Yass Valley in terms of landfill, and I know we may not go up to that level. I just wondered, what is the cost of a tonne of landfill that we pay in regard to this particular memorandum of understanding?
Through you, Mr Mayor, current rate is $47.44 per tonne plus GST.
Sorry? So,
$47.44 per tonne.
okay, and the cost, is there a cost involved with shipping it as well?
Transport, yes, the council, we transport our own.
So there's that cost as an add-on as well?
It's additional to the.
And so that's all going to Bald Hill? Okay, thank you, which is at Jugiel. Yeah, thank you.
Further discussion?
Further question for the director while he's on a roll with those figures there. that was worthy of the Price is Right. Right there at your fingertips. Just
Was prepared.
Yeah, oh, okay. This is we were admiring you for your quick response anyway. A question on what is the longevity of the Bald Hill site, and when do we need to start planning for a different location?
Through you, Mr Mayor, they don't know. There has been some ongoing problems with the operators over a number of years, and at this stage, they're only guesstimates of how long the life is left in there. Part of the reason is Hilltops Council is it manages it on behalf of the 5 councils that participate in this. They haven't had a manager overseeing the operations there for a few years. They do seem to have some staff now working very hard on this because they're now trying to cover off all the administrative matters associated with the Bald Hill operation. But that's certainly a question that the general managers have all asked. What is the capacity left in there? Because there's 2 things we need. One is that allows us to plan knowing what the time frame is, but the other issue is that each of the 5 councils has to undertake the remediation of the site, which we have inherited. There's no way we'll be able to go back and negotiate that at this particular point in time. But yeah, we want to know the answers to the 2 questions.
Have you been provided with any guesstimates?
Anywhere between 5 and 8 years, I think, has been suggested.
Okay.
But again, I don't think there's any great deal of science behind that number at this particular point in time. Certainly, I think that's an issue that we will be pushing. Well, I know all the general managers are pushing for an answer on that particular issue.
Students, if we have a worst case scenario, those estimates are wrong in the negative, we turn around, we find out we've got 24 months before we need to find another location. Any early discussions that you're privy to share?
No, Mr. Mayor, no, there's not been any preliminary discussions. I guess we've been focused on, okay, what's the extent of the problem that do we have or we don't have? And that hasn't been satisfactorily answered at this particular point in time. My understanding is that there is an area at Bald Hill for what we call another cell, but that will take some time to get the approval for and the preparation of. But there may be some extra capacity at the site that we would seek to have access to if they proceed with that particular cell.
Okay, no further questions? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare it carried. Land acquisition, item 6.12.
Second.
Councillor Cameron,
Thank you.
Councillor Turner, Councillor Burgess. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. Part rate peg for 2024, 2025 financial year. Recommendation that it be noted. Councillor Abbey, Councillor Turner. Any discussion, any comments? Councillor Abbey.
Yeah, through you, Mr Mayor, I just have a question in our report here. It's alluded to the 4.5%, but it also goes on to say with 0% allocation for population growth. I mean, our population is growing. Is this something that we can have reviewed or enhanced?
Through Mr Mayor, I'm not aware that we can actually have it reviewed. The review, they did undertake a review of the methodology recently, and they've applied that new methodology for this area here. My feeling is that they're using ABS data that may not be up to speed. But when they do this in the future, then once the ABS data is known, then they would apply the population component.
Other comments? Councillor Jones.
I think our CEO in our earlier session this week summed it up that it is not in with CPI. So while it's great that we've got a more equitable result and what we had to fight for before, it's still not enough.
I agree with you, Councillor Jones, and I think everyone around the side.
Wasn't expecting any opposition there, but you know.
Okay, I'll put the motion then. All those in favour? Against, declare the motion carried. 6.14, the investment report, the recommendation. I'd like to move Councillor Reid, Councillor Potter. Any comments? If not, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 6.15, 2024 World Sand Green Golf Championships at Vineland Golf. Councillor Burgess, Councillor Cameron. Any discussion? Councillor Jones.
What a sensational event for Yass Valley to secure, and congratulations to the Vineland Community Club. I wanted to ask the CEO in lieu of Director Safranek not being able to be here in person, would this benefit from a steering committee or some kind of dedicated officer in councillor to assist? Because there's a lot of items that I think as council we would like to see us contribute wherever possible. If it's in our capacity to assist, there's a big long list here, and as councillors we're not privy to understand whether by providing those we would leave you operationally poor in some area to the detriment of, you know, safety or OH&S. So if there is an extra component that you'd like to add in terms of providing a staff member to be the specific negotiating point with the Vineland Community Club, it might provide a very seamless and improved experience for this event in terms of their relations with council.
Through Mr Mayor, we already have a person on staff who would be the go-to person in relation to the promotion of this event and the support for this event. That's the Manager of Tourism and Economic Development. Lynette has also, as the Director, oversees that role and has a keen interest in making sure that this is a successful event. So we do have a go-to. But remember, this is the Vineland Community Club event. We're providing a support role, not the lead role.
Yeah.
We're not running it, we're just providing support to them. they've given us a long list. I think there's certainly in that long list, there's some trimming that we need to do to meet the
Of the trees, they'll take it.
I think we're going
Very expensive.
Yeah, I think look, that's their opening ambit claim at this particular point in time. But we've made a suggestion to take out the sponsorship, but we've also made a suggestion of in-kind support as well, of up to I think it's $5,000 in the report from memory. So it's a matter of going through that list and seeing what we can do and what we're capable of doing versus what's outside of our remit. I think demolishing a house might be a bit beyond us. Especially if it's got asbestos on it or something like that. Well, no, if it's got asbestos, no. So, yeah, we will work through that list with them and work out what we can and can't do.
Now, as part of the sponsorship, it does include one group in the 2024 Men's New South Wales Open Tournament Pro-Am consisting of 3 players. The public might be very interested to know, are we doing a lottery for those positions? Are councillors brushing up their golf sticks and polishing them? Are we asking the community to put their hand up and suggest or put forward some suggestions?
True, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to leave that up to the golfers of Yass Valley to have that argument. I think, look, if the Valley Golf Clubs put a team together, I'm sure that their entry would be accepted. But as I understand it, they're not like bowling green type greens. They're sand, and there's a very different way of playing. It's a much more challenging event than normal golf, I suspect. But I'm sure that there will be plenty of people who will be prepared to put their hands up, but I don't think we need to make the selections of the team.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just on that subject, I did have a quick conversation with some people from the Yass Golf Club, and they do already have some members who are travelling out to Binalong quite regularly and practising. They've known about this and they're excited and they're already working on it, so they're all over it.
Why aren't you there?
I can understand that because I think the prize money is quite decent.
Just in case there is a void, I would suggest that Lionel the Lion from the Smith Foundation be put forward as a priority if there's prize money involved.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 616 data breach policy. Here's a recommendation. Councillor Reid, Councillor Potter. Any questions? Any comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, declare the motion carried. 612 tender evaluation. Yes.
Do you want to move all 3 together?
Yeah.
That's a good idea. Okay, so we're going now to 8.1 questions with notice.
Did we want to do 620 next? That's a late report.
Yeah, the late report.
Yes, we do have
Did
that.
we accept it in at the beginning?
Yeah, you did.
Yes.
Oh, thank you. Sorry.
That's the only one who's a suit.
Through Mr. Mayor, this is a apology for the late report, but we're in the hands of the auditors as much as anything else. We did have a further meeting with the auditors on Monday, which led to some further adjustments. So again, apologies effectively for 2 late reports, but the final report basically picks up the concerns that the audit office had, and those minor adjustments have been made. My understanding is that it doesn't impact on the bottom line for the statements, and we can proceed with submitting those statements formally to the Office of Local Government. So, as I said, I think there's been a huge amount of work put in by the staff to get from this point. Look, I've got no doubt that we will receive a management letter to highlight some areas of concerns, but we will deal with those in due course. I'm pretty sure we bring those to council in any case for consideration. The one issue that they've highlighted in the documentation to date is our failure to recognise the red fleet, the RFS vehicles. But I think as we have pointed out on numerous occasions to auditors, that because we don't control the asset, we don't believe that they should be on our books. We are not the only council doing this. There's about 70 councils in rural New South Wales that are taking this view. It's a matter of principle. And look, if that's the only major issue that's been identified, I think it's certainly something that we can live with.
Someone going to move the recommendation, Councillor Abbey, and seconded Councillor Reid. Any discussion? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? Declare the motion carried. So we go now to 8.1, question with notice. Is there a response? Any comments? Everyone happy? We go to 9.1, meeting notes of the Sustainability Advisory Committee. Is there a recommendation? I'd like to move the recommendation, Councillor Cameron and Councillor Reid. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'd like to make a couple of quick comments. This committee that I've chaired, I just would like to basically thank the people who have been involved in this committee. We've had a big membership of 9, and we've been meeting nearly monthly since we've been formed. I think there was even one occasion where we met twice in the 1 month. So we've done a lot of meetings. We've developed a pretty good framework for analysing the issue of sustainability. And I think the people have been working hard to push ahead with some of the issues that we've been looking at, particularly FOGO, which we are still hoping to achieve some success at some stage. On Tuesday, I was at the Garden Club meeting, and I was approached by a couple of people who said, "Hey, have you noticed that there's a whole lot of information on Facebook?" Somebody's asked, "Should we have green bins in Yass Valley?" And of course, that prompted an enormous outpouring of pro and against and costings and all of that sort of stuff. But the last time I looked, there was something like about 150 comments. So, and the people at the Garden Club were actually sort of asking me about that as well in a very general and informative way of saying what the benefits could be, etc. And so we've been pushing ahead with that. We've had some difficulties with council staff not being around or leaving, which has made some of the things that we were going to do in that area been deferred in the short term, but we hope that we can make some practical movement in the near future. So I'd just like to say that the 9 people have really worked very, very hard. They've been very, very committed, and I hope we can have a successful 2024. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. I'll put the motion then. If everyone's happy to vote, all those in favour, those against, declare the motion. 9.2, minutes of the.
So move that the recommendation be accepted.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Second, Councillor Reid. Any discussion? I'll put the motion then. Oh, Councillor Abbey.
Just through you, Mr Mayor, the CEO, at our briefing session, I came up with a couple of adjustments to these minutes. I looked online today and I haven't seen those amendments done. Will they be ultimately be changed? They were. One, there was a person not mentioned as being present, And the other one was the recommendation two says 28 days. Well, it's greater than 28 days.
Councillor Abbey, if you could, can I suggest you remind Sheree of that when she comes back from annual leave. We'll deal with that issue when she's back on deck. She's
And when is she back?
I think at the end of January, and she's flying around Scandinavia, I believe. So.
Is that Is that acceptable? Good.
Thanks.
Okay.
All right,
Can we resolve that 28 days by just simply changing the date of 28th February? That's considerably more than 28 days after the 8th of January.
yeah,
Just put a line through for 28 days. Probably get permission from the 8th to the 20. It's the easiest thing to do.
okay.
Delete it.
As I'm on the committee, I just want to reflect the fact that why the Director of Corporate Planning made it longer than 28 days is the fact that it's a fairly quiet time in early January. So that was the thinking.
Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Okay, prepare the vote. I'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against, declare it carried. Thank you, Councillor Burgess. 9.3, minutes of the Country Mayors Association, there was a recommendation. Someone like to move it for me, please? Councillor Popham, Councillor Reid. Any discussion? I'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the Murrumbateman Playground Project Committee meeting, there is a report, a recommendation. Someone like to- Councillor Jones, Councillor Cameron. Any questions, any discussion? I'll put the motion, all those in favour, those against, declare the motion carried. Minutes of the Yass Valley Open Space Strategy Project Committee, there is a recommendation. I'd like to move it. Thank you, Councillor Abbey. Do we have a seconder? Councillor Turner. Any questions? Any comments? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Okay. That concludes the general notes. We're now going to closed session. Is that right?
Will be correct.
Do we have a mover? Councillor Abbey, thank you.
Okay, can you stop the public